morale in corrections than anything that's happened so far, including their pandemic.
We are now live.
Thank you. Okay, so here we are in government operations, and we apologize. It's Wednesday, May 5th. And isn't this some kind of a holiday? Isn't this the
It's
day?
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
No one made an announcement on the floor.
Well,
Happy
we just
Cinco
did.
de Mayo.
We just did. So, anyway, we apologize for being late. It has, we've been having technical difficulties, and just so people know, I'm going to say two things here. First of all, I seem to have swallowed water in the wrong pipe, as my mother used to say. And so I keep having to cough and get raspy. So if that happens, I will just I will mute myself, and Senator Polino will take over, just so that you know that I'm not doing it because I don't want to hear what you're saying. Secondly, if we lose our feed again on YouTube, that we've been advised by leadership that we need to stop doing whatever it is that we're doing. So I'm going to give that warning so that everybody is aware of that. So with that said, I think that what we have on our agenda first is the charter in Winooski. Am I right about that, Tucker?
Yes, that is correct.
And Matt Sisto, are you from Winooski?
Sorry, Senator White, I'm part of IT.
Oh, you're with us from IT. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yes, well, you're live streaming now, so I'll jump off this meeting. Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
you're welcome to stay. Thank you, though, for
And
helping
Matt,
us.
yeah, Matt, keep us live. Keep working on us.
We're working, believe me.
I know.
Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Good luck.
Thank you. So Tucker, would you like to just walk us through the charter changes in Winooski? And then we have Underhill on today also.
Before Tucker gets underway, I just want to mention that if we do go offline, I will try to get us back online. So I was able to do it this time by trying to get in like 6 or 7 times. So I will try to get us live again so that we don't have to scrap the afternoon.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Okay, Tucker.
Good afternoon, everyone. H227 contains the charter amendment proposals for the city of Winooski. There are a few overarching themes here, the largest of which is all resident voting within the city of Winooski, which would permit any citizen of the United States or permanent resident of the United States, similar to the city of Montpelier charter, to vote in city elections. There are conforming amendments throughout the charter that I'll highlight for you that relate to that. We'll start in section 2 of the bill, which amends chapter 19, City of Winooski Charter, in section 105 to eliminate references to the term citizen and replace them with the terms person, persons, and corporate entity, to make clear that any resident of the city could qualify under that section. Under section 201, there is a technical correction eliminating reference to just the generic term general law and replacing it with a reference to section 202 of the charter, which deals with the qualification of voters. This is going to tie city meetings to the all resident voting scheme within the city of Winooski. Moving on to section 202, this is the bulk of the all resident voting amendments that we will deal with in this charter. First, in subsection A, we have the express statement that the qualifications of voters in state and federal elections shall be as provided by general law. So this partitions off those state and federal elections. Goes on to state that the qualifications of voters in city meetings and all municipal elections shall be set forth in subsection B of this section. And I want to point out for you that this is actually an important piece as it came up in the House, because the incorporated city school district within the city of Winooski is a municipal election that would be governed by this section. And that is because the charter for the incorporated school district in Winooski cross-references the Winooski charter and says that anyone who is qualified to vote in city elections is qualified to vote in the school district elections.
And it's only a Winooski school.
Correct. It is contained within the boundaries of the city of Winooski.
Okay.
Subsection B states that notwithstanding 17 VSA section 2021 subdivision A1, which deals with the qualifications for voters under general law, any person, including persons who are non-US citizens, may register to vote in any city meeting or municipal election who, on election day, is a legal resident of the city, has taken the voter's oath, and is 18 years of age or older. Moving on to page 3 in subsection C, as used in that subdivision B1, a legal resident of the city means any person who is a resident of the city and is a United States citizen or resides in the United States on a permanent or indefinite basis in compliance with federal immigration laws. This definition is a result of an amendment from the House Government Operations Committee. They were trying to harmonize the definitions from the City of Montpelier Charter and the City of Winooski Charter to make sure that there was a consistent pool of resident voters here. In subsection D, it states that the city clerk shall maintain a voter checklist for city meetings and municipal elections, and shall keep the city checklist separate and apart from the voter checklist maintained for state and federal elections. Subsection E, the voter checklists that are maintained by the clerk for those elections shall be subject to the protections given to the statewide voter checklists under general law, 17 VSA section 2154. Section 205 eliminates specific requirements for nominations for the office of mayor and councilor that were contained within the City of Winooski Charter. And instead, you'll see the new language at the bottom of the page, links the requirements for those petitions for nominations to general law. So it references 17 VSA sections 2681 and 2681A. So in that section, they're just eliminating their specific charter requirements and going back to general law. Section 304, this is an amendment, conforming amendment here for the all resident materials within the charter. It eliminates a reference to the term citizen and replaces it with resident. Section 305 of the charter eliminates some prohibitions, eliminates some language in the prohibitions conflict of interest section that formally stated that notwithstanding any charter provision to the contrary, a paid or unpaid volunteer member of the fire department, other than an officer or member of the department appointed directly by the manager, may serve as a member of the city council. So this is eliminating that reference. I suppose now those members may not serve as members of the city council. Section 50, oh,
I just think that's it. I find that interesting that a volunteer fire person couldn't.
That is so puzzling. Being the mother of somebody who was a volunteer fireman, I mean, who still is, and was on the trustees of Woodstock, it's sort of interesting to, they're already pretty committed to the town. One would think, volunteer firefighters. Anyway.
Okay.
Section 506 of the charter adds a new appointed officer to the city, and that is the Human Resources Director. And there will be some conforming amendments later on in the charter that link that Human Resources Director into specific duties. Section 602 of the charter is another conforming amendment, eliminating the term citizen, replacing it with resident. In section 603 of the charter, we have amendments to eliminate the position of personnel director, which again, going back, will be replaced by the Human Resources Director, and adjusting the adoption of the personnel policies. Here, It's eliminating that the personnel director shall prepare personnel policies and inserting in lieu thereof the city manager. So the city manager shall prepare personnel policies for the city. In section 717, some language is being struck that refers to vacant land zoned RCO, which is recreation, conservation, and open space for purposes of tax classification. New language is inserted to clarify that, except for the property of utilities subject to regulation by the PUC, all personal and real property set out in the grand list that is not used as residential property, farmland, and public recreation, conservation, or open space lands shall be classified as non-residential property and shall be taxed by applying the tax rate on 120% of the assessed value of the property. And there is an amendment there eliminating reference to the fair market value of the property and replacing it with assessed value. And I did do some research, and those are essentially under general tax law equivalent terms for purposes here. So there's no change in the tax status effectively. The last amendment is in section 903. It amends the oath of office that is codified for elected officials within the city to eliminate the affirmation, "So help me God," or "I so affirm," and instead replacing it with a clause at the beginning of the oath that requires the officer to solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law. And those are the City of Winooski amendments.
I have a question for you, Tucker, on 717. So anything that isn't residential, farmland, public conservation, public recreation, or open space land is classified as non-residential, and the rest of them are all classified as residential? Or is there a separate category for public recreation, conservation, and open space lands and farmland?
I think that there are separate categories for each of those that are enumerated there. And I will look into the city's charter and general law to make sure that that is correct before you move forward on that assumption.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about this? Yes, Senator Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know why I didn't pick this up when we talked about the Montpelier Charter, but maybe Tucker could help me understand. I understand what permanent, I'm going back to the definition of legal resident, resides in the United States on a permanent, but I don't understand what indefinite means. Does that mean, for instance, that if I go to the city clerk's office in Winooski on election day and I say I want to vote and I'm a non-resident, but I have a plan to be indefinitely residing? I'm trying to understand what the word indefinite means.
It targets separate categories of legal residents in the United States. So there are types of permits that are granted on an indefinite or ongoing basis, where you are, for example, permitted to work or study, and it doesn't have a definite term of years attached to your status as a legal alien in the United States. And I can go back, Betsy and I looked, and I believe submitted a lot of materials around these terms for the City of Montpelier Charter. So I can pull up some of the guidance that we looked at from the USCIS about what some of these terms mean.
You explained it well enough. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think some of them are like student visas that are for 2 years, or the whatever they are, the seasonal migrant, the seasonal apple pickers down here that are for a very specific length of time, or hotel workers at resorts that are.
Those are also HB visas of a different variety. Yeah. But the green card is an indefinite period of time. If I'm a daughter of somebody who moved from being a green card holder to being a citizen, but it was that indefinite period is definitely for basically permanent non-residents. The crowd that the group of people that testified 2 years ago for the Montpelier Charter, that's that group.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you say that the green card is permanent or not permanent? I lost you there.
It's indefinite period. It's for it
Right,
just
all
means
right.
that you're here now,
Right.
but for an indefinite length of time.
Right, okay.
It's not, as Jeanette was saying, for the we have very specific other visas for what I hate the term resident alien, but for
Really,
you know,
right.
Okay.
So Tucker, you didn't take out anything that makes it, we're not prohibiting citizens from voting, right? Like you did in the Montpelier one?
I'm assuming you made that in jest, but that was not a creature of my doing. But yes, so around the time that I noticed that missing in the Montpelier Charter when it came over here, I highlighted it in this when the definition was being created in that subsection C, and you'll note that we put in "and is a United States citizen or resides in the United States on a permanent or indefinite basis."
Good catch.
And I just want to point out one of the questions that was raised to me before we did the Montpelier one was around Montpelier. So if you're a resident of the city, or if you live in the town, can you vote in the city, and vice versa? And we have 9 cities in Vermont. Winooski is one and Montpelier is one. They do not reside in towns. They are separate from towns. Incorporated villages reside within the borders of a town, but a city does not. So we have the city of Rutland and the town of Rutland, but the city of Rutland is not inside the town of Rutland, but the village of Bellows Falls is within the town of Rockingham.
Just like
So
just like Woodstock.
Woodstock is a village, an incorporated village within the town of
Woodstock.
Okay. So those 9 cities that we have don't live in towns, so there's no conflict there with town resident and city resident. I just wanted to point that out so we all remembered that. Okay, any questions on that? I'm not sure if I lived in Winooski that I would agree with the volunteer fire department thing, but like I always say, they're the ones that voted on it. They must have had some reason.
So I thought I understood that they're moving from that prohibition to now allowing them.
I thought the House took that part out. No? Okay.
So Tucker, you're shaking your head. Does that mean they're adding this as a prohibition or removing? I thought they were removing it.
It says, read it again. Tucker, yeah.
Bringing us back. So at the start, it says that except where authorized by law, no counselor shall hold any other city office or city employment, which is the important piece, during the term of election to the council. And in the past, you had language that stated that notwithstanding any charter provision to the contrary, a paid or unpaid volunteer member of the fire department, other than an officer or member of the department appointed directly by the city manager, may serve as a member of the city council. All of that is being taken out so that this section is now going to state that except where otherwise authorized by law, no counselor shall hold any other city office or city employment during the term of election to the council. So we have eliminated the exception for those fire department volunteer or paid staff members, and they're diverting back to the general prohibition.
So the volunteer fire guy can't be on the city council.
But I don't think they have any volunteers left. I think they are now a fully professional fire.
But even a professional one that isn't appointed by somebody cannot serve.
I think that's good that the people who work for the town shouldn't be able to. I mean, I know it's like ruling yourself. I don't know. I know we're going to disagree on that, but I
No,
actually.
no, I don't have any disagreement on it. I don't have strong feelings about one way or the other, that if you are a fireman, I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyway, they voted on it there.
But I think we should double check, but I believe that they now are a wholly professional department.
I
So-
am not sure it makes any difference.
I
Because
do.
if they do have volunteer fire department people at any point, they can't be on the city council, period. Even if they have none now,
Right.
if they have an auxiliary that's volunteer, they can't. So I don't know that we can if we want to, but I don't know that we need to. Any questions about this one?
Not really. It's just a confusing sentence. I think it's just the way it reads, but I get it.
Well, it's gone now.
Right.
It's, yeah.
Any other questions or concerns about this one? Okay, can we vote it out? Does anybody care to make a motion?
Can I just ask a process question?
Yeah.
Do we have some belief that it could get is it possible for it to get out of rules?
It is out of rules.
It's out of rules. That's why
Oh,
we
being
have-
with us, it means it's out of rules.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. I thought, because when we voted Overdose Awareness Day, it also
That was
went back.
but that was an S bill that started here.
Oh, okay.
This
We
is
had
a House bill that came to us.
Got it. Okay.
And it
We had
is
to
out
put
of,
it out of rules so it could get to the House, your S bill.
I have a very random question, but it talks about this property tax classification changes. There's not gonna be any desire by the finance committee or anybody else to want to take a look at that for any reason, right? I
They
just want to be
might.
certain of that.
no, I can't imagine why, because it isn't changing any property rates. It's just saying that they're rewording it, so it's still, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think they
Recreation,
should.
Conservation and
just something
open
that-
space.
Yeah. I don't think they should. It just made me wonder.
If they want to, they can take it, but I don't think Ways and Means took it, and I don't think that they will, because it isn't changing any tax rates.
Right.
And
It's actually using the exact same words, except that apparently at some point they had a classification called RCO, and now they've eliminated that classification and just said what they are. That's what it looks like to me.
Yep.
Senator Collmore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had another question for Tucker. It just dawned on me. And maybe we've already answered this before, but I don't remember. So a resident of Winooski who's here on either a permanent or indefinite period of time, can they run for office?
Yes, they can.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
That actually came up in the House committee, and there was some robust discussion around prior to the amendments that the House committee did. This read that any resident, regardless of their status, could vote and hold office. And there was a lot of discussion and research done around whether someone who did not have legal status could hold an office where they would get a salary from the city, and whether the city would then be put in a position of violating federal law if someone was elected to a salaried office.
But by the definition of voter, they are allowed to run for office. I mean, it's in.
Yes.
Okay.
But they can only be a voter and thus run for office if they're a legal resident.
Because as we learned when we talked about this in the past, Tucker probably found it between Tucker and Betsy, there were non-citizens who were elected to office in Vermont a number of times throughout history, and courts always uphold the possibility of that happening.
Okay, I would suggest, unless we have any more questions about Winooski, we move on, because I think we're way behind ourselves now.
I
Yes,
would move the bill. I just have forgotten its number.
H227.
I would move that we vote out H227 favorably.
Thank you. Keisha, do you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Collmore,
No,
Senator Polina,
Yes.
myself, Senator Rom, yes, Senator White.
Yes. And is this being in your county, Senator Collmore usually reports our charter changes, but on this one, I didn't think he might want to.
I'd be glad to.
Madam Chair.
Tucker,
Okay.
can you give me a summary of the changes? Just there's the little ones that I don't, the whole thing, but I didn't like some of the little ones that aren't related to voting.
All right, so I believe next week on our list, we have I want to look at our agenda
So,
because,
Madam Chair,
yes,
ask Tucker a question because it will help Keisha.
yes.
Who reported this on the floor so that Keisha can connect with them? And because we didn't actually hear how many people voted for it, what percent won, it won by, any of that stuff that we normally
All
hear.
right.
It up.
That would be Representative Colston of Winooski.
I assume.
And I can send Senator Rom the Winooski Charter Amendment packet, which contains the votes and sample ballots and everything else.
I'll reach out to Mayor Lott and Representative Colston and just make sure I have details that are important to them.
And the same would be true for the next two charters too, Tucker.
And I am actually, I'm not sure we're going to take them up right now, just because if we are scheduled at 1:45 to do 4:35. And because on 4:35, I believe we will have some changes that will need to go back to the House. And also on the resolution at 3. So, and I suspect we will probably not have changes on the two, the Underhill and the Williston charter. So they won't need to go back to the House. So just for timing, I would suggest, unfortunately, that we switch now. And Tucker, I'm sorry, and I know you just adore being with us and we adore having you here, but I would suggest that we switch now because the other one is a little time sensitive. Thank you, Tucker.
Thanks, Tucker.
So what I'm going to do is suggest that we now switch to, is Ameren with us, Gail?
Ameren is in the waiting room. I'm letting her in.
Great.
And I am going to contact the witnesses because I've been telling everyone that we're about 25 minutes behind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just think that it's more important that we get to this than,
So I'll see if I can get Commissioner Baker.
okay. And then I believe Ameren has sent us, and I don't know if it's posted or not. Yes, I think it is. The changes that we made, the suggested changes, a rewrite of the 435, which is on our website. Okay. All right, so sorry witnesses that we said we were behind and then I just screwed everything up by saying this was more important to take up because this was going to involve a bill that had to go back over to the House. It took us about 25 minutes to get online. That's why we were late to begin with, because our instructions are that if we can't go on YouTube, we can't function. And I do know people who are so tied to YouTube that they can't function without it, but I didn't think we were, but I guess we are. So anyway, we are
That's another
now.
issue altogether.
Huh?
That's another issue altogether and belongs in health and welfare.
Yeah. So let's go to 435, and Ameren has, we've posted, Gail has posted the Ameren's suggested the changes that she made after our suggestions yesterday after our conversation. So Ameren, do you want to walk us through that so we can see where we are?
Certainly.
Thank
For the
you.
record, Ameren Abergele Legislative Council. This document is posted as H435 Miscellaneous Corrections Bill markup. So you'll see this is a markup of the bill as passed by the House. And the changes I've made based on the committee's conversation yesterday are noted in yellow and bold. So beginning with the first page, I've deleted section 1. This was the polygraph examinations and drug testing report section. And then moving from page 1 into page 2, this is back to the Department of Corrections Monitoring Commission. The committee wished to add an additional 2 members to the commission. So you'll see at the bottom of page 2, I've increased the number of members from 7 to 9. And moving into, sorry, that was the bottom of page 1. And moving into page 2, you'll see that subdivision D has been amended to say 2 formerly incarcerated individuals who resided in different facilities appointed by the Defender General. And then you'll see there is a new subdivision H. I'm realizing yesterday I forgot to ask who the committee thought should appoint this former employee.
No, I think that we're taking that out anyway, because it was the community justice centers. And what we heard.
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
that-
Did I?
It's okay, but what we heard anyway was that they are under a direct contract with the Department of Corrections, and there could be some conflict of interest there in terms of them kind of currently being employees. So we're going to take that out anyway.
Okay, take out.
And then I suppose you'll have to change your number again.
Yes, I will. And change number committee members.
I apologize for that.
All right, that's all right. Moving on to page 4. Add in subdivision E, and just as a reminder, these are the areas that the department, that the commission will be monitoring.
Mhm.
And so subdivision E, I added the word facility in talking about facility maintenance of an independent reporting hotline to the
Mhm.
state police. And added a new subdivision G as another area of monitoring facility staffing needs, employee retention, and employees' working conditions and morale.
Right.
Good.
In subdivision 3 on this page, this is about the reporting that the commission will do. The request was to not make this an annual written report, but rather to state that the commission will report annually to the Commissioner of Corrections, the Secretary of AHS, the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions, and the Senate Committee on Judiciary on metrics that assess the department's performance on those areas above from the previous page. And then I added in that the report to these entities should include recommendations for improving staff retention and employee morale in the Department of Corrections.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great to
And-
add it twice. And if it was, yeah. And if people are really going to hear it, it probably needs to be somewhere a third time. Just checking.
In section 4 on page 6, this is the implementation section for the commission. I changed subdivision D to note that the Defender General shall be appointing 2 formerly incarcerated individuals, 1 for a 1-year term and 1 for a 3-year term. This is to maintain sort of an equal number of people coming in and out of the commission from year to year.
Mhm.
And then on page 7, I will remove the H that I added.
Mhm.
And then moving down to, and this actually was not something that the committee spent much time on, but it was mentioned, so I thought I would put language in here for more discussion in section 7 on page 10. And this is concerning the Criminal Justice Council and developing a proposal governing minimum training standards, complaint investigations, and a process for certification and decertification of correctional officers. The proposal shall, and then you'll see I removed those 2 items and instead said address the relationship between the councils and other state agencies' scope of investigative authority.
I think on that one, maybe it just needs to be the investigative unit at corrections, because I think there's already clarity around the relationship with like state police investigative powers and stuff. I think this is just around the DOC investigative unit.
So sorry, Amarin, I've completely lost you. I thought you've jumped to section 5.
She's on page 10. That's the only place another change was made.
I've jumped to section 7, in fact, on page 10.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry. I had a question before that, but anyway, we'll go back to it. I had a question in the composition. I guess I'm just not clear, and the language isn't clear either. With the Defender General, the Defender General is appointing whom? Why are they getting 2 members? I thought we were talking about 2 former members of corrections. I mean, 2 former residents of corrections. Why should the Defender General get more people?
Allison.
Yeah.
If you read above, the Defender General appoints the 2 incarcerated individuals, and this is just about their terms.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarity, because I got stuck there and I was trying to think it out, and then you whizzed ahead on this bill. So thank you. Sorry. Oh, well. Sorry. So you're now in section 7?
On page 10.
Got it.
So I think that I would just say shall address the relationship between the council and the Department of Corrections investigative units scope of investigative authority, instead of making it broad to all state agencies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Brian, Senator Collmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a question of grammar, I think. If we go back to page 4 at the top, and I think, Amron, you mean the same thing, but would it make more sense to move the word facility in front of the word hotline? In other words, we're talking about an internal hotline, and I'm not sure what facility maintenance, I guess I understand what it means, but does it make more sense to say maintenance of an independent reporting facility hotline? In other words, does that, or am I not getting something?
No, you are. And I had
so.
a hard time figuring out the best placement for it, because at first I was thinking maintenance of a facility independent reporting hotline, and then I didn't know whether it would be confused with reporting about a facility as opposed to being situated in a facility.
But it should be facility possessive, so it's a facilities hotline, because we're talking about an individual facility.
And I think Brian's placement is right.
Good.
I also found it a little confusing because it says facility singular.
I know
It is singular.
It is singular.
But people
But it's
reading this
possessive.
don't necessarily know that, I don't think.
But it's still possessive. It's the facilities hotline, even though it's a single facility.
That the people reading this is under the Department of Corrections investigative unit. And I guess we could put in, no, I'm sorry, this is under the monitoring commission. And I guess we could put it in there. It is the only facility that has this hotline. That's what we heard from the commissioner, because I thought maybe we could expand it to all facilities, but that became a nightmare. So it is, maybe we should specify which facility. Does that make sense, Commissioner? Sorry to catch you off guard.
No, that's all right, because I'm just reading through, Madam Chair. Thank you. Yeah, I do think that if you clarified that, it would be better.
And just put,
I think his point is, we'll take it right the way it's phrased.
and would we specify that it is in the one facility where it's maintained?
It's where it's maintained right now is the women's facility, correct?
And should we specify that to Senator Polina's point, or just leave it as it is and people will know what it means?
I mean, I think that to Senator Polina's point, right, if somebody's reading it from the outside, they may not understand it, so you clarify it. But
Okay.
I think that will clarify it. Yeah.
Do we call it women's prison, or will it continue to be
I
called?
don't like that. Yeah, I would refer to it as the women's facility.
Okay, for women's facility. Okay, great.
So may I ask a question on this point?
Yes.
Just to go to Keisha's question yesterday, and I think a concern all of us have, is there any thought of rolling out a hotline for, I mean, I know we talked about this briefly yesterday, but is there any, I mean, this doesn't limit the idea that in the future we could roll out a hotline in other facilities.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure we don't, because I actually think it might be important to have one in every facility. I know it's an IT challenge.
It is an IT.
Yeah, this is everything.
And probably
It's an IT challenge.
a cost challenge also.
Yeah,
If
I'm
it's
less worried
IT.
about the cost than some of the, when we try to expand IT stuff in some of the existing facilities, like expanding the ability of the tablets for the incarcerated population, or expanding broadband brought in for training purposes for staff, it becomes very challenging because of the structures. I'm not opposed. I just don't want to get locked into legislation saying we're going to do that.
Okay, so we've taken care of that. So are we okay with the changes that have been made so far? I mean, I know we're not done with this, but does anybody have any issues about the changes that have been made so far?
No,
No,
Senator Clarkson?
I do, it's niggling at me, and I know we have on drug testing. So the umbrella I'm thinking under is drug testing. Are we going to have an opportunity to chat about that further? Because it struck me that the concern of the employees was that there'd been repeated complaints, and how do the repeated complaints correlate with the probable cause, and how can we make sure that repeated complaints aren't investigated, or is this unnecessary now that we are going to have an investigative unit? I mean, I guess, although I think from what my understanding of Jim's testimony is that the investigative unit is pretty much to investigate things that have happened rather than things that are in current play. I'm just going to add something here, and then maybe the commissioner can weigh in. First of all, I think that the investigative unit is not to investigate individual instances of discipline or bad behavior or anything. It's a systems-wide investigation. So it wouldn't, if there are complaints against someone for drug usage, this unit would not investigate them. That's a different investigation. That's my concern. My question, the question is, at what point do a number of complaints about somebody not become probable cause? How do we underscore somewhere in this bill that we're going to do a better job of actually looking at those complaints and reviewing whether there's probable cause for a drug test?
If I can finish my thought, on page 6, it says that a monitoring commission will review the employees' adherence to department policies, procedures, and directives. And I assume that means not just COs, but means the management staff. So what we heard from VSEA is that there are plenty of policies and procedures, but they aren't always followed and recognized and enforced. And I believe so I had added that as
That's
an
right.
addition here, but then didn't need it because I think it's there. So,
Okay.
I think we need to be also careful about assuming that just because Digger said there were 6 complaints, that there were actually 6 complaints. That is, we cannot take our information from the media. We take our information from other places, but I think we need to be very careful about assuming that there were 6 complaints and that they were never investigated. There were some complaints, and my guess is that many of them were investigated. So I don't know how we do this in here, but if an investigation showed, and the commissioner can speak to this, but if an investigation shows that there is probable cause for a drug test, I'm sure that they would administer one, but they have to have probable cause first. So
Right.
Commissioner, if you want to address that kind of whole ball of wax, that would be great.
Yes, Senator, I agree with you that be careful about what we read and what we know, right? And I have to be careful about what I talk about, protecting people's privacy rights around employment investigations. So again, on the drug testing piece, I think where we stand after listening to this yesterday is a conversation between us and the union to make sure we understand.
Right.
I think the statute gives, I think trying to deal with this in this bill is just bogging people down yet another conversation when we can have a conversation through either labor management or, Steve Howard and I can have that conversation around probable cause. And probable cause is a well-defined term. So the way I see this, without getting too far into the case I know you're talking about, although I wasn't here, I have read that report. Not getting too far into that, Senator Clarkson, to your point, probable cause would be there is someone on duty and they're exhibiting signs of impairment, and you would have to build up probable cause right there on the spot in order to test, to ask someone to test. We don't even have that process in place, and I think that's what we should talk about. And I'll reemphasize what I said yesterday. Part of this was the reaction to the DMR report based upon the story that was in 7 Days, which talked about drug use. I have a better understanding of that than the story does. And I have to reemphasize because the question was asked, have I heard of stories that are unsubstantiated about drug use? Yes. But since I've been here, there are no substantiated stories about or evidence about drug use. I don't think it's that big of an issue that can't be worked out, that we would follow what the state law is and have an understanding with the union when we would apply that. I don't support, even if we could under the law, I don't support random drug testing. I don't think you treat employees like that. But I do think that when people fall into issues around misuse of substances, we should be an organization that wants to help our employees get better. That for me is what this is about. It's not looking to be punitive.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I see Steve has his hand up. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted just to reemphasize a couple of points. The Commissioner made one of my points, which is that probable cause is a well-defined legal standard. The department does have a general counsel. Management is, it's the management's responsibility to determine whether the facts in a particular incident rise to the level of that legal standard, and they are well equipped with legal counsel to advise them on whether or not that they have that. So that's the one point. The other thing I just want to reemphasize in the Downs-Racklin report, which was reinforced by testimony from our members, widespread drug use by correctional officers is not a widespread problem in the Department of Corrections. It was repeated several times in the Downs-Racklin report, and our members would also agree with that.
Any other questions or issues on this point? Okay. So if everybody is in agreement on the particular changes that we've made now, that Ameren just walked us through, can we just put those aside and move on?
Can you
Yes.
remind me exactly what the language will be around community justice? Is it like belonging to just one of the community?
No,
justice?
there won't be any.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the community,
I thought it was a former community justice center, but it's a criminal justice center.
oh, a former member of a community justice center. Did we decide we wanted to do a former member? We can't do a member. Do we want to do a former member?
I thought that's where we had landed.
That's what we had said.
Okay, all right. So Ameren, on that one, don't take it out, but it's a former employee of a community justice center. And
Thank
now
you. I
you'll have
think-
to change your number back again.
And they have, because I was asking because they have like a coalition. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that body would appoint the person or how that would be determined.
Yeah, Commissioner Baker, who is the in charge of that? That's not Willa.
In charge of the
Community
criminal
justice.
centers, it falls in the housing unit with Derek and Emily. So,
But don't they have an association, a kind of a coalition of them?
I think the better definition is what Senator Ram said, right? That it's a coalition. They meet on a regular basis. They meet with us on a regular basis. So there is a group. So I guess if that's your proposal, then they could make the suggestion. I mean, the
Okay.
only challenge, I don't disagree with the concept. The only challenge is if you don't find a former member, right, that's willing to serve, where does that leave you, right? With the language that again, could be problematic, that you can't find someone that's a former member of a CJC to serve on the commission.
So I think Ameren has a suggestion.
There is sort of a catch-all provision after the section that outlines who should be appointed in the qualifications. There is sort of a catch-all if you can't find someone who meets these qualifications. And let me see if I can find what that language is specifically. If an appointing, and I'm on page 3, I should say, if an appointing entity is unable to find a candidate for appointment to the commission who meets the criteria of subdivision 1, the appointing entity may appoint an individual with relevant lived experience. And then there would still be the prohibition on the person appointed being either employed by the Department of Corrections or work in any part of the state correctional system. So I think that would prohibit a current employee from the Community Justice Center working there and would give the appointing authority an option to appoint someone else who has relevant experience.
Which could be another ex-incarcerated person, or it could be somebody who's been part of the COSA groups, or somebody in restorative justice. It could be somebody who has been involved but in a different manner.
Because it says a former employee, it could be a former volunteer, let's say, something like that.
Right, but even if you left that in there, as Ameren pointed out, they have the ability to appoint.
Sure, no, I agree.
Yeah, okay. Does that satisfy you, Commissioner?
I'm good, Senator. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
I just don't want to get trapped into a situation where we can't fill it.
I agree with you. That would, okay. So are we all okay with those changes now? Okay, great. All right.
Madam Chair, before
Yes.
we move on, could I have someone give me a recommendation on how I describe this either coalition or the appointing entity for a former employee of the community of a community justice center.
I think it has a
Not
name,
sure.
and we should find out. We'll
Okay.
find that out.
We'll get that to
Okay.
you. I'm
Okay,
not-
thank you.
Yeah. I bet Representative Coffey knows it right off the top of her head, and she's probably sending it to you as we speak.
I can send it to you. I know the person who does that work. It's Jill Evans, and they meet as a group, the community justice centers, but I'm not sure if they have a formal association or coalition. And I'm going to try to track that down.
I think it's the Community Justice Network of Vermont.
It might-
Okay, thank you.
That is it, Community Justice Network of Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cameron, does that help you? Okay, great. So I think where we are, committee, was, and I'm going to throw this out here. I just had some information brought to my attention that we, of course, now I can't find the piece of paper or I had it written down, but we now have about close to 120 vacancies in our corrections staff. And there are a number of reasons that people in corrections have given me for those vacancies. But and a lot of it is around, and this was brought out by the DRM report also, around the retention issue and retaining. And as the commissioner said yesterday, I think that oftentimes they have less problem recruiting and more problem retaining. And some of that is salary, I'm sure. Some of it is the fact that they have to work mandatory overtime in instances that, and COVID, I'm sure, hasn't helped because some of the programs are actually shut down. And so people like the teaching programs had been shut down. And the way complaints are often handled, inmate complaints against employees. So I asked, I know this is an issue, and I know the commissioner knows this is an issue and has been working on this for a long time. And that's why we put in those issues around looking at the reviewing the staffing needs and the retention and the morale. But I asked VSEA if they could come up with some possible language around that would, based on one of the recommendations from DRM, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place, but this seems to be the only vehicle we have for doing anything. So I don't know, Steve, if you were able to come up with any language or if you want to expound on that a little bit. And
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 55 of the DRM report, you will see they dedicate a significant amount of time and paper to the issue that we have raised as the #1 crisis facing the Department of Corrections, which is the staffing crisis. And, I'll just give you a quick blip to what's happening right now as we speak in the correction system. Right now, what our members are telling us is that they've closed two units in the St. Albans facility because of the lack of staff, that 18 people left last week, that the Springfield facility is down to 50% staffing level, that there are some serious, we're really at a serious point as we speak. The DRM report confirms what we have testified and calls for the department to create a retention bonus that would help to alleviate potentially or incentivize people not to leave and not to leave in the rapid numbers in which they are leaving. that in and of itself will not be the only solution, but certainly could be. So one addition that I would recommend, and I don't have the exact language, I'm still working on the exact language, but what I would recommend is that the legislation direct the administration to enter into negotiations with the authorized representative of the employees to put in place a retention bonus to try to deal with the emergency that we're in right now, both long-term and short-term. That would be something that I think would be very critical to addressing what our members see as the number one problem facing the department that is pervasive throughout all of the issues in the DRM report.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Sarah Clarkson.
So I'm just curious, are exit interviews being done of all these people? Do we know why they're leaving? I mean, I know retention. Look, I worked to get retention included in the the work that the commission's looking at. But do we know why they're leaving? What do we do exit interviews?
Yes.
And is there a consistent theme as to why they're leaving?
Yes.
And what is that?
The way they're being treated.
So it's not money. It's how they're treated.
That's correct.
Well, Madam Chair, if I can, so we have had for years regular communication with our members about why people are leaving. And the commissioner is right. How they are treated is an important component to it. They are also not as well compensated as the federal government in the New Hampshire facility, the state of New Hampshire, the state of Massachusetts, the state of New York. They don't have as robust a retirement plan. And so they can go work in a facility in another state and be paid more. And that is, while it's not the only thing that is contributing to the turnover, it is a significant issue that we think should at least be discussed between the parties or looked at as part of this report. The number one problem is the overtime and the exhaustion that the overtime causes, which is of course sort of a chicken and the egg issue with people coming and going. And I think the third is the way they're treated, or as our members would say, the lack of support from management. And when they say management, they don't just mean those folks in central office. They do mean those folks in central office, but they also mean the superintendents. In this particular facility, the DRM report focuses on 7 superintendents in 9 years. And that is an issue that we need an answer to. Why were there 7 superintendents in 9 years? Where did they go? What are they doing now? I think that is not just a problem that's unique to that facility. You'll also see that in Southern State, where there's been a lot of turnover of superintendents. There is an issue both in the central office, but also in the mid-level management, that people just don't feel supported, they don't feel adequately compensated, and they leave.
Senator Rahm.
Commissioner, I feel like I heard that there are 2 recruitment officers. What would you say the apparatus is for retention? Is it just HR?
Guess I don't understand your question.
Do you have a
We do.
retention officer? Like you have a
we have 2 recruitment staff. We have put a lot of, pardon me?
Their focus is retention as well?
That's correct. We just stood up a committee on equity and fairness and retention that's focused on that issue. I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of what Steve said, but now that I've been here 16 months, I get there's a historical disconnection between central office and the field. No 2 ways around it. But not to make this me, but I will tell you, I focused on this. I've been on the phone today with 8 employees in private conversations that wanted to talk to me. I hear directly from them what the concerns are. I have not heard about one exit interview where money was mentioned as an issue. Now, to his point, I'm not going to go back and figure out why there were 7 superintendents. I'm focused on developing the leadership of the department, quite frankly, so I can move on. And there is a challenge, but these are grinding jobs the superintendents have 24/7 on the hook, 7 days a week. They burn out. Now, with that said, one of the problems in corrections is we haven't invested in individuals, and it starts, as Steve says, down at the lower ranks. And that's a focus right now with developing investment in employees to develop them into future leaders. So we have the type of leadership. The bench is not real deep right now. No two ways around it. I will say, and I don't want to start debating, I'm not sure where we came up with 18 people left Northwest last week. Not sure where that number came from. But I don't want to debate numbers, but we are in a better place now than we were a year ago. And part of the reason why we collapsed units, yes, we're having a staffing issue at that facility. Part of the reason why we collapsed units was to balance the state out where we have stronger staffing levels. And we do have challenges keeping people. I've talked to the people who've left directly. I've read the exit interviews. We have a problem in corrections in the way that people on the ground supervising talk to people. And I'm taking action on that right now. Now, with that said, I don't think that putting in this legislation, directing us to bargain is the place where you bargain. I would be, and I think without checking with people above me, I think they would be very much against putting legislation and directing us to bargain with the union. Now, we want to talk about hiring bonuses and retention bonuses. I'm more than open to that, but I don't see that as the primary problem. I do agree with Steve. We have a real challenge on staff. These are difficult jobs, but I also got to tell you that the leadership team I have around have difficult jobs too. And I gotta push back a little bit because I've been listening to this for a year and a half now about the central office. I am now the central office, and I know what I'm doing every day to support the men and women that work in corrections. And I know it sounds good, but we're all working very hard, especially through the pandemic. I cannot ask more out of the staff that's around me and what they've given in the last year to manage the pandemic in our facilities. So if I'm sounding a little pushy, I am, because I'm really frustrated. I keep hearing this, because I'll say, my final thing I'll say about this is, do you really think I can get people to come work at corrections if they listen to this and the leadership of the organization's being trashed? I doubt very much somebody's going to go work in an organization like that. So I'm done on the subject of hiring.
So may I suggest that, and ask the commissioner, it's a little, your last comment is a little bit like, we had a governor at one point who always trashed Vermont for being an unfriendly place to be and to start a business. And I thought, wait a minute, if our main cheerleader is saying that, why would anybody come here? But anyway, so it reminded me of that. But I wonder if, I'm looking at the investigative unit, and their charge is to investigate systemic issues. And is this something, this isn't an individual personal issue. This is personnel issue. This is an issue of the system itself. And is there any value in putting something in here that would ask them to also look at, I know we have that they're going to look at compliance with policies, procedures, and directives, but would there be any value in putting something in here that asks them also to look at what are the systems issues that might be contributing to the retention issue?
Wouldn't, Madam Chair, wouldn't that be a commission
Yeah, I
charge,
agree.
not an investigative unit charge?
Well,
I agree, Senator Clarkson. I think Senator White, that I think part of the reason why I've supported this commission all along,
okay,
is for all the reasons that we're talking about. I think this causes leadership in the organization to sharpen their pencil and have to answer to somebody.
Okay.
Okay. So I think this issue around retention and hiring and how employees are treated, this takes me back to my state police days. One of the reasons why the SPAC commission was created was because of gender bias in the Vermont State Police. And one of the first things they worked on was the issue around recruiting and retaining women. Although it's a little bit different, it's not really different. So when I started working with HCI on this bill, that's the reason why I brought this idea forward, is that I think it sheds light onto what we're exactly doing inside the organization about retention. And it's a real problem. And I think if I, as the commissioner, have to go in front of as a commissioner, have to go in front of a commission to explain what I'm doing, it's going to make me sharpen my pencil and work a little harder at what needs to be done. And that's the concept that I see it as.
Okay, and we already do have that as a charge for the commission. We added that in.
And we could expand on it if you wanted, with exploring all sorts of, but I think that we have it, you could expand on it, but I think we have it.
Yeah, we added that already. Yeah, okay. Just trying to think here about where to put it. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just raise the issue and the concern I think that I tried to raise yesterday, and I'm not sure if I said it in the right way, but one of the things that's really contributing to how people feel they are treated, and as the commissioner rightly referred to, the disconnect between central office management and the folks in the field, are all of the outside forces in the Department of Corrections who are imposing policies and programs and protocols that come in from on high and drop into the facilities, into the field, but never reflect the view of the people on the front lines. So one of the concerns I think that would be that's difficult to see with the way the commission is structured, where it prohibits any active members, any active folks in the system who actually work for the system, and I understand the reasons for that, to participate, is that we would have yet again another outside force coming in to tell the folks who actually have to run the facilities and who have to try to hold people in the field accountable. Another outside force coming in to say, well, this is what we're going to do to try to retain you, instead of actually working with the people who have the information in real terms and in real life. There are layers and layers of programs and protocols that our members don't think are effective and should exist. But their efforts to get those changes made go nowhere. So that is a significant concern. We have right now in the Department of Corrections a lot of outside entities, and our members in the facilities, not all of them, but a large number of them, and in the field, feel like central office is just yet another outside entity dropping more protocols and more things for them to worry about in a system where they already don't have enough staff to do the basics. So I don't know how to address that other than to try to figure out a mechanism that directly includes the actual frontline workers in the field and in the facilities, so that it's not viewed as, here we go again, the so-called experts from outside are going to tell us how to fix the system.
Well, I think that's what I was thinking about when I suggested it be in the investigative unit, because I do see that the investigative unit is going to investigate department compliance with policies, procedures, and directives. And maybe it also might be looking at working with people around the system's reasons for the retention problem. I don't know. That's why I thought that it might belong there. Not that they would. I think it also belongs in the commission, because the commission is, as the commissioner said, is a way of bringing the corrections out and this group in. I mean, so that there's more cross-pollination is the way I look at it, and kind of an external view and transparency. But I wonder if there's any value in putting someplace, and I'm sure the commissioner is working on this. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get lost, and I don't know where it goes, but that the issue of retention is huge, and I don't know how we get at it. But Senator Clarkson, I saw you have your hand up, and then
Yeah, I think we could handle that concern of Steve's by adding, kind of the obvious thing, which is that the commission will seek, will work with staff, work with all the, I don't know how you'd say this, Amron, but it's sort of straightforward, which is that there's nothing here that prohibits the commission from speaking directly with employees of VSEA members and employees of staff members of corrections. I mean, I would assume that for them to understand the situation, they would have to reach out and speak with staff. They'd have to reach out and speak with residents. They'd, but we could make that a little bit more explicit that they, wherever possible, they work, they work with the staff and residents of the facilities, because you're right. They need to have, we hope that their ears will be to the ground and that they will get direct witness on all these issues.
I would like to hear from the commissioner on that, but on how he sees that commission acting in that capacity. But first, I'd like to hear from Senator Polina has a question.
Well, not really a question, and I'm sorry, I don't have a solution either, but I just really wanted to add my voice to the fact that I think the retention issue is really the underlying, probably the most important thing that needs to be dealt with, because it has to do with the morale within the building and how the inmates are treated and whatnot. And I just think it's really, really important. And what Senator Clarkson just said about direct meetings between the commission and the inmates or residents would be an important step, but I'm not sure that solves the problem. I'm just saying that I'm confirming that I feel really strongly that we need to come up with something. And I also think the commissioner said that none of the exit interviews talked about money. But if I'm working in a job where I'm under a lot of stress and it's not a great working condition and I'm not being paid that well, I'm more likely to leave. Whereas if I know that I'm being paid well, I'd be willing to put up with more stress at work. I mean, you get what you pay for kind of thing. So I think that ignoring the pay issue and the retention bonuses it would be a mistake, because the problem with that is I don't know how you go about doing that anytime soon, quite honestly. I mean, we have people look at retention bonuses and whatnot, but it's still going to be next year before we're actually able to deal with it, I would think. So anyway, like I said, I don't have a solution. I just really want to make clear that I feel it's really important that we find a way to do it. I don't know what that is yet.
So I'm going to, I want to hear from the commissioner about how his response to the appropriateness of the commission acting in that way. But I'm going to also suggest that if we want to put something more strong about the working on the retention issue, there's no reason why we can't add a whole new section. It doesn't have to be under one of these. We
Right.
can direct the commissioner to whatever, which is what they're already doing, but we can make it clear that the commissioners to work with the recruitment and retention officers and the employees around the issue of retention. We don't have to fit it into one of these places, but
Yeah,
I would
good
like
point.
to hear from the commissioner about the appropriateness of the commission acting in that way by going out and getting testimony.
Well, Senator, I fully support that. I mean, I think it's part of the transparency.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. The whole idea of the commission is to shine light into the organization. We are public servants, and we should be held accountable, just as I should be held accountable for the operation of the department. And I see this commission as a way to take a look at and give advice to the commissioner on the major issues of the day. I do not disagree that retention is not a major issue. It is.
Okay.
It's a very serious issue. So I see no reason why the commission couldn't ask in a given meeting to have line staff come in and talk to them. And as I said, I talk to line staff all the time. Been on the phone with staff today, getting feedback from them about the issues of the day. And I hear what their concerns are. But I also think another set of outside eyes looking onto something like that would be very helpful. And it could be a major issue that the commission takes on. If somebody's, again, if somebody's got other ideas about how to retain, for me right now, it's focusing on the leadership of the organization and telling them my patience is running out with the way they're talking to staff, because I hear it all the time. These are human beings doing a difficult job that need to be treated with dignity and respect. And I think if you talk to leadership, they'll tell you that message is pretty clear for me. So the commission certainly should take a look at retention.
So I'm going to call on Senator Rahm and then Vince, but I'm going to make a suggestion that we put in here under the commission's responsibility, looking at retention and morale. I'm going to suggest that we put that as the number one responsibility under 2, that we make that A. That's and then that we beef it up just a little bit in terms of not just saying, look at the retention and morale, but that we beef it up just a little bit in terms of the language that we use and make that number 1, so that it's clear that that wasn't an afterthought, that that's really something that, and I think everybody agrees that it is something really important.
Thank you. I think it is. And I think the commissioner identified it as sort of number 1 issue, as at Steve. So
just before I go to Senator Rahm and then Vince, Commissioner Baker, Senator Baker.
Look, to support the committee even more, may I make the suggestion that the first report out to the legislature that you have in the language is on retention, on morale and retention.
Yep.
That it could be the first thing that they report out as a commission.
Perfect.
I think that's a pretty strong message right there.
Yep. So Amran, do you feel comfortable with making that change and just beefing it up a little bit with the comments that we've been making about, or if you would like some help with language, we can get that too.
I have a couple questions. As this is presently drafted, the subdivision C2 for powers and duties has the commission monitoring the department in certain areas. And so what it sounds like to me is that you're looking for something more than just sort of monitoring and statistics in this staffing, retention, and morale area. So I would probably suggest making this its own subdivision under C. So you would have the subdivision 1 provide advice and counsel. Number 2, having the commission looking into staffing, retention, staffing needs, those issues and you can either have a report back in that section alone, or you can add that as a report back in Subdivision 3 on page 4. And I don't know if you want 2 report backs or if you want to put it all into one, but I think I don't know that this falls really into the category of monitoring something so much as taking a look at this one particular issue and making a recommendation out of that.
I think that's a great idea because it emphasizes it even more.
So would you like a report within that new subdivision specifically just on this one issue? Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Good suggestion. So Senator Rahm.
Yeah, I mean, I think this either underscores that or fleshes it out, but I feel like missing from the discussion of retention and morale is if these other facilities and states have better retention and if they can pinpoint why. So I would think one of the easier ways to interrogate this issue is to look at any facility that might have high retention and understand what they're doing, kind of like we've done with teacher retention and teacher quality in schools. I just feel like the data is really missing from this conversation at this point.
Yeah, and they've been working with Maine, I believe, in particular, the women's facility has this close working relationship with the Maine facility, don't they?
We are, Senator, and we have the print project going on in Springfield, which goes directly to culture. There'll be surveying going on starting next week. We'll be doing surveying with the staff and the Chittenden facility as well as part of that project with Maine. So Senator Ram, to your point, that is ongoing now, collecting that data.
Okay, Vince, you've had your hand up for a while.
I did. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair. I want to underscore the need to act in this bill today, this year, and not include it simply in the study language. Although I must say that your committee gets a double gold star for the manner in which you've tried to address the VSCA issues. We really thank your willingness to do so. The reason I'm supplementing what Steve has testified to is I was asked to testify in the House Commerce Committee about S62, which is the governor's proposal to attract workers to Vermont by giving them an incentive. We thought maybe we could use that approach to help recruit staff in two agencies where we have a critical shortage, and that's corrections, COs, and AOT drivers, many of whom have CDL licenses. It's a real critical staffing shortage. What I heard in reaching out to our members to find out what they thought of the idea was, hey, what are we, chopped liver? And they're the ones that brought up these unpleasant numbers. I know the commissioner doesn't want to talk about them. And I know that applicants for jobs in state government don't listen to government operation committee hearings, but the staffing numbers are critical. The employees I spoke with said that they're getting almost daily retirement announcements, people leaving for a number of reasons. But more critical is the fact that people will go to the academy several weeks long, some expense associated with it. And then once they get into the system and experience it compared to what they could be making in a private sector job at about the same rate of pay, they are gone. In Chittenden, also, in addition to Northwest, I was told that they had to collapse a unit in Chittenden, the state's female facility, because they're down 20 staff. And so they closed one of the units there. Fortunately, there was space at Northern State because of the exodus of offenders by the courts to try to address the pandemic issue. Southern State 55 down. So the numbers are real. You can't ignore the numbers and say that's unpleasant, people won't apply. People are leaving because of the mandatory overtime, the constant investigations. And so I think the fig leaf that this committee could offer to the career workers would be a directive, as the chair said in a separate section of the bill, to direct the Secretary of Administration to engage in a collective bargaining process with the VSCA, which is known as in statute as the exclusive bargaining unit. Now, clearly it puts the commissioner in a tough spot. He can't agree to that. That's a Secretary of Administration, governor level decision. But if you put it in your version of the bill, it's going to generate the debate necessary for the administration to respond. Also, it's going to be a signal to the members, to the VSCA members, to the state workers. A committee listened to our concern and acted on it. Whether it makes it beyond conference committee to the governor's desk is a debate for a separate day down the road. But I cannot underscore enough Steve's request to include a section in the bill that directs the parties to negotiate a retention bonus. Otherwise, we have new employees staying for several months and leaving. And now we have career employees who are eligible to retire, exercising their option and leaving state service. So I'll leave it at that, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with the committee.
So I do have some questions about that. I don't know how we would word this. I don't know that we can direct them to open negotiations, but I think we can make can make a strong statement in a separate section that says that there needs to be immediate attention to this in addition, and I don't know what that immediate attention would be. It could be.
I think you've already said it, Madam Chair. The immediate attention needs to be paid to retention. And I think that we heard from the commissioner, there are exit interviews done, and the overwhelming reason people are leaving isn't because of pay. I mean, I don't think we can direct. I think you're right, we can't, but we could add language saying this is the number one issue we need to be addressing, which is retention. And the parties, however we do it, I just don't think jumping to the conclusion that the pay is the issue. It sounds like there are a whole host of issues, and pay isn't necessarily at the top. So I think if we direct the commission to address this first, that is about what we're able to do. I don't think we can direct the parties to bargain.
No, I was thinking of not even directing the commission to do it first, but to put in a separate section here that directs the administration to look more carefully into the retention issue and what might make a difference. And I don't think we have to say that they have to reopen negotiations or that they have to negotiate, but that they need to look right now. And I know Commissioner Baker is doing it, but if we say that the Secretary of Administration or the Secretary of Agency of Human Services, that's corrections is under AHS, that they need to look immediately at this, because this isn't even going to go into effect until July.
Yeah,
and I have to say, money is not the main issue. That is true. But as Anthony said, if I have a job that I'm working at for $15 or $13 an hour, and it's got all these issues involved in it, and I could go work at McDonald's for $13 an hour, or right now I could go down to Full Flex down here, just down the road, and work for $23 an hour. And so if somebody, and not have as many hassles. So if somebody said, but it is an issue. I would stay at a job that pays more with the hassles if I was getting paid more, because there are many of us who live paycheck to paycheck, and the difference in the paycheck is considerable. If you have a crappy job, or you feel that you're not heard, but they say, well, we're going to pay you $3 a month, an hour more. We're going to give you a bonus after a certain period of time. That might be incentive enough to stay.
It may or may not, but Madam Chair, I think our counterpart in the House had her hand up on this. Maybe they
yes, I do see that.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I do see that, and I'm going to go to her, but I wanted to get my say in first. So, Representative Coffey.
Madam Chair, and I know I'm not a member of this committee, so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
And are you better today?
Yes. Oh my gosh, much better. Thank you. But grateful to have a vaccine. So, but I just wanted to add, our committee did have DOC come in. We heard pretty extensively about what the commissioner and his team are doing to recruit and retain folks. And I think we did hear in the DRM report that the morale of the staff is very much part of this issue about what the issues of misconduct. And so I think it's appropriate to add that into the role of asking for the commission to do a report like that. But I hope that we can remember that the reason that we have this piece of legislation before us is because of the sexual misconduct that was happening at CRCF. And I know that this afternoon before coming into this committee, I was part of a conversation about this issue with, and that House Commerce is going to be looking at some of this tomorrow morning. And so I just offer that as a point of information. I think Vince Luzzi mentioned that he was going to be going into that committee, and we are very concerned about, being able to retain our officers. And I think it's also, we're having a workforce shortage in our state, and this is part of it. These are hard jobs, and I think we want to support our workers, but I just wonder if this is the vehicle for doing that. So I just thank you for letting me speak.
Sure. I just have a question. What do you mean House Commerce is dealing with this issue?
I believe H-159 is coming back over from the Senate. And I think they included in that the remote work, there's something about the remote workers program. Right. And I think there was some conversation about, could there be something within that?
It's the relocation of workers.
Thank you, not remote,
Right.
Yeah, relocation of work.
Right.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. And that maybe there could be a way to support corrections through this, which I think is a really interesting idea. And I know they're going to be looking at it and taking it.
Yeah, they have the bill in that committee, Chair White. That's why
Yes.
they have S-62 in their committee, which they haven't acted on.
Yes, I understood that, and I understood Vince to say that they were looking at the remote workers bill, but I think the issue here is not necessarily giving workers a bonus to come work for DOC, but how to retain them once they're there.
Right.
And so just giving them a bonus to come as a remote worker doesn't solve the issue of retention. So
Right.
I don't know if the House Commerce is looking at the issue of retention and how to address that, or if they're just looking at extending the remote workers to state employees.
Right. That's what we're going to ask them to do.
Yeah,
They're looking at it as an incentive for people to come. It's
Right. I get that, but that wasn't the issue that was brought
right.
up. It
I
wasn't
agree. Well, it's a piece of the issue, but not the retention piece.
right, and that's what we're dealing with is the retention issue. Is Senator Polina?
I don't think trying to give people a bonus, an incentive to move to Vermont to work in a department that is overrun with bad feelings is really going to be that useful, tell you the truth. I also just want to go back, if this is not something that can be open to bargaining, which people have said is not able to do, and I don't know enough about that to say whether it can or cannot. I want to go back to something that you kind of implied. I don't know if you got into any detail when you talked about it, Madam Chair, but of pulling together some kind of, I don't know, I would call it a task force, but different than this monitoring thing, with maybe the secretary or the other high-level administration people to say, look, this is an emergency situation, essentially. This place is falling apart. We need to come up with some recommendations on retention and recruitment and do it now outside of this monitoring thing. And just, I don't know whether we could do that, and bring together a small committee meeting with the agency secretary and other folks from the administration and the VSCA to really talk this through and get moving on it.
So I'm going to suggest, Steve, you have your hand up, and then I'm going to make a suggestion here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know first of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion, because you don't get this opportunity in every committee. So I just want to appreciate your willingness to put up with me. I do want to just make one point about, and Damien may even be able to weigh in on this better than I can, but I have seen legislation adopted by the House and the Senate that does direct the parties to negotiate. That is not something that would be unprecedented and has been part of other pieces of legislation.
Okay, so I'm going to call on Damien, but I'm also going to make us aware that at 3 o'clock, we are supposed to shift to another topic. And I would suggest that we have some changes here, and that if they're, I'm a little concerned about directing them to renegotiate, but I am open to having a section in here that directs and I don't know who, to listen to the commissioner and the employees better and start doing, putting in place some of the retention issues that they've been working on. Because I know that they've been working on them, but I also know that sometimes it takes, that things happen rather slowly, and that would like to make sure that people are aware that the commissioner needs support in doing this. Yes, Senator Clarkson, and then we're going to switch. Oh, Damien. You are muted, Senator Clarkson.
Maybe it's time for one of our terrific chairs letters that actually calls the question on this to the administration, and I don't, and really says we have a crisis on our hands. We want to support the Commissioner of Corrections and the VSEA. We need to be addressing this retention issue now. Maybe one of your directive letters from our committee, maybe now if we worked together on what we wanted to actually direct the administration to address and how to prioritize it, maybe now is the moment for a letter like that. Because you're right, this isn't going to happen. This bill isn't going to be law until July 1st. Yeah. But letter from Jeanette happens in the next day or two and could be more effective.
And the other people in this room with us right now probably don't have a clue what we're talking about here with letters from our committee, but we have done that in the past around a number of issues and directed people to made an official letter from the committee, and it almost always gets immediate results from people. And it's often easier to do that than to put it into statute and to wait until effective dates. And so that might be something we should think about. So I'm going to suggest that clearly we didn't get this bill voted out today. I'm going to suggest that we come back at 1 o'clock tomorrow with every intention of getting it wrapped up and voted out, so that we can get it back over to the House. And Representative Coffey, I do want to say that I know that the impetus for this was the sexual assaults, and I will tell you that Section 6 we haven't changed that at all, and we have no intention of changing it. And we also are putting it into I think it's the consent bill. We're adding it into that section, just on the off chance that something happens to this bill, so that will be in
Page 183.
I don't remember the number, but it's the consent. It's either the consent bill or one other bill. But yes, I just wanted you to know that was going to happen.
That's great, Madam Chair. That's wonderful to hear.
So, but I do hope that this bill can, Senator Polina.
Well, I don't know I thought we were going to move on, but I was just going to say, if you decide to write a letter and you get inspired to start working on it before the next time we speak, I would just suggest that the letter could be the place where you could recommend that they open negotiations, or else come up with an alternative to those negotiations that would be able to move quickly.
Yep, I will write a letter. I will send it to everybody and see what you think and make corrections. And because I'm never wedded to any letters I write, and am happy for edits. Does that make sense? I'll try and do that. I will do that tonight.
Yeah, if I could comment on the reopening the contract question.
Yes, very quickly.
Yeah, so in order to reopen the contract under the statute, the parties have to mutually agree. There is precedent for the legislature directing the parties to enter into negotiations, but it is typically when we either provide some sort of additional requirement or additional funding that's earmarked for something specific. So for example, if the committee were to recommend the appropriation of funds for a retention bonus or something like that, then you could direct the department and the VSEA to enter into negotiations to determine how it's implemented.
Oh.
So you leave all the details to them so that they can implement it. And we've done this in the past with things like background checks and so forth, so that the union and the administration work out all of the fine details of how to implement various requirements that have come up and that sort of thing. But otherwise, a letter from us asking them to enter into negotiations would still require both parties to consent to it.
Okay.
So that's all I've got. Thank you.
That was helpful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, committee. I suggest that the only other thing I'm going to add here is that I think that Steve, you were going to come up with some language around the investigative unit, just making it clear, even though we know that it isn't around individuals, in making it clearer that where individuals, that this is a systemic review, not a personnel review, and that if it results in issues that deal with personnel, then they will have their rights honored. So if you can come up with that language for tomorrow, that would be great. So that we can, and if you can come up with it so you can send it to us early, that would also be great.
Senator Aluzzi will have that to you by the end of the evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's delivering it at Sarducci's at dinner.
Okay.
Wish I could.
Amron?
Yes, could you make sure I get a copy as well? Just
Yes.
so I know where it's coming from. Thank you.
Yes, please.
And
Okay.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, as you draft that letter, you might want to just coordinate with the commissioner who has made retention one of his issues,
Oh.
and find out what have been the barriers, so that you can be very specific in your letter about addressing the barriers he's faced within the system, maybe so that we can be effective with our letters, so that we're deploying it in a very targeted fashion.
Good idea. Yep, good idea. Thank you. Okay, committee. Are we ready to move on?
You
Do
bet.
you think we
break,
could?
a run around the house break?
No, I was going to suggest a break, but now that you have, I'm not going to give us one.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.
And Madam
I
Chair,
don't-
you saw that Tom can't make it from the email. Maybe Gail has something she wants to say, but
Oh, I didn't see an email. I haven't seen my email for a
Right.
while, but I'm going to, let's see, Michael.
Michael was here.
Yes, well, he is here. Michael, I'm going to send you some draft suggestions that I had. Okay, I'm going to forward them to you right now. And we're going to take a 5-minute break for things we have to do. And then,
Madam Chair, if I may, this
Yes.
is Michael Chernick, Legislative Counsel. Good afternoon. Do you want me to start working those in the next few minutes into a Senate proposal of amendment?
well, I want you to look at them first and us to have some discussion.
Okay, because I just wanted to make clear that it would be impossible, I suspect, for me to create a document in 5 minutes. It really should go to editing, et cetera.
Oh, no,
I
no,
can
no,
look
no,
at
no.
it right now.
Oh, no. We don't expect you to do that. I'm going to forward these to you though.
By email. Okay.
Yeah.